The wooden door shattered. Django burst into the dark hut, gasping. Before him stood Caiello, eyes burning with rage, a heavy machete pressed against his wife Nia's throat. Nia wept bitterly, portraying a helpless victim. "Let her go, monster!" Django roared, lifting his spear. Caiello sneered. "She is mine. You are just a thief." The tension was suffocating. This was the boiling point of a deadly triangle, a husband and a secret lover ready to kill. Just 3 moons ago, the village knew a different reality. Nia was celebrated as the village's most beautiful and beloved flower, recently married to the wealthy but famously cruel Caiello. But behind closed doors, a different life unfolded. She would sneak away during the midday heat to secretly meet Django by the cool, rushing waters of the river. "He beat me again," she would cry softly, pulling back her woven shawl to show him purple, blossoming bruises on her delicate arms. Django, acting as her devoted second husband in the shadows, would pull her into a tight, desperate embrace. He was a kind, gentle hunter who knew the forest but not the complexities of human deceit. Whispering into her hair, he promised to rescue his beloved from Caiello's daily torment. Within the high mud brick walls of their grand compound, Caiello's booming voice constantly thundered, striking deep fear into the hearts of every servant. He would violently throw his carefully prepared meals into the red dirt, shouting wildly that Nia was secretly trying to curse his bloodline. "You wicked woman! Your heart is black and full of poison," Caiello would scream, brutally kicking over a large clay water pot, shattering it into 100 pieces. During these terrifying outbursts, Nia simply cowered in the darkest corner of the courtyard, her face a flawless mask of heartbreaking sorrow and submission. The servants watched in silent terror, and soon the entire village whispered fearful rumors about Caiello's rapid descent into violent madness. Far away from the judging eyes of the village, under the massive, sprawling shade of an ancient baobab tree, Django gently wiped the continuous tears from Nia's cheeks. "We cannot live in this fear anymore. I have hunted day and night, gathering enough cowrie shells to buy a new, peaceful life for us far away across the plains," Django whispered passionately. Nia slowly looked up at him, her large, beautiful eyes wide with innocent, desperate hope. "I want to go, Django, but Caiello will hunt us down like animals. He will never let me go alive, and he has the trackers to find us. For us to be truly free, he must be stopped permanently," she said softly. Django hesitated, his moral compass fighting his overwhelming love for her. Slowly, he reached into his leather belt and handed Nia a small, tightly woven pouch. It contained a highly potent, dark powder made from the crushed roots of the deadly nightshade plant. "Put this powder in his evening palm wine. He will fall into a deep, dreamless sleep and never wake up to hurt you again. It is the only way for us to be truly free," Django said, his voice trembling slightly at the thought of murder. Nia took the pouch slowly. Her hands shook violently, her eyes darting around in fear, perfectly portraying a gentle woman absolutely terrified by the dark sin she was about to commit. That tense evening, the air in the compound felt unusually heavy. Caiello returned late from a heated meeting with the Chief's Council. He looked profoundly exhausted, his broad shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. Surprisingly, he did not yell or break anything today. Instead, he sat heavily by the indoor fire pit, staring deeply into the flickering orange flames. A profound, crushing sadness seemed to hide behind his usually aggressive, intimidating eyes. In the shadowy background, Nia silently and diligently prepared his evening meal. Bring me my drink, woman, Kalo muttered softly, his voice lacking its usual thunderous authority. Nia turned her back to him, her hands moving swiftly in the dim light as she opened the small woven pouch. She poured every grain of the lethal nightshade powder into his beautifully carved wooden calabash, swirling the liquid expertly until the poison dissolved completely into the sweet, fermented palm wine. Taking a deep breath to steady her nerves, she brought the cup to him. Her face was completely masked in absolute subservient innocence, her eyes downcast respectfully. "Here is your drink to ease your burdens, my husband," she whispered sweetly, handing the deadly, poisoned vessel directly into his large, calloused hands. Kalo took the heavy wooden calabash from her delicate hands, but he did not bring it to his lips immediately. Instead, he looked up at Nia with a strange, incredibly sorrowful and penetrating expression. "I know I have been exceptionally harsh to you, Nia. I pushed you away forcefully, but you must understand, it was necessary to protect you from the dark shadows slowly creeping into this very house," he said, his voice thick with unspoken emotion. Nia's breath hitched, and her beautiful eyes widened slightly in momentary panic, but she quickly masked her shock behind her tearful facade. "You are tired, husband. Please drink and rest," she urged softly, hiding the terrifying anticipation hammering in her chest. Without another word, Kayelo closed his eyes and drank the poison wine in one long, continuous gulp. Almost instantly, a violent reaction seized his massive body. The wooden calabash slipped from his trembling hands, shattering loudly on the hard earthen floor. He gasped sharply for air, clutching his broad chest as a burning, tearing agony flooded through his veins. His legs gave way, and he fell heavily to his knees in the dirt. His fierce, normally commanding eyes were now wide with unimaginable disbelief and horrific pain as he stared directly at Nia's calm face. You actually poisoned me," he choked out, blood dripping from his lips, before his massive frame collapsed entirely onto the dusty floor. The heavy wooden door creaked open slightly, and Django stepped inside the dimly lit hut, his spear ready. He quickly scanned the shadows to ensure no passing villagers had seen him enter. Seeing Kayelo's massive, lifeless body sprawled in the dirt, Django let out a massive sigh of relief and smiled brightly. "It is finally done! The cruel monster is dead! We are safe and free forever, my beautiful love," Django said affectionately, moving forward to pull Nia into a passionate embrace. But Nia did not run into his waiting arms. She stood perfectly still in the center of the room, a sudden, chilling calmness entirely replacing her endless tears. The innocent victim was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, a horrifying wet sound broke the silence. Kalo violently coughed, vomiting a stream of dark blood onto the floor. He was not dead yet. The nightshade potion was simply not strong enough to kill a warrior of his immense size immediately. He lay completely paralyzed, unable to move anything except his heavy head. Panicking, Django swiftly raised his sharp hunting spear, determined to finish the bloody job. But before he could strike, Kalo began to laugh. It was a weak, wet, and utterly heartbreaking sound that echoed in the dark hut. "You absolute fool, Django. You really think you saved this helpless woman? You are blind. She is the true curse that will destroy us both." Django paused mid-strike, his spear hovering in the air, completely confused by the dying man's strange words. Kayelo gritted his teeth, forcing his painful words out. Those terrible bruises she showed you by the river? She painted them herself with purple berry sap. I swear to the ancestors, I never laid a single violent hand on her. I purposefully acted completely mad, screaming daily and breaking my own things to scare away the village elders. They strongly suspected her of practicing dark, forbidden witchcraft. I willingly ruined my own respected name and honor to protect her life from the chief's ruthless executioners. Kayelo gasped, the painful truth hanging heavy in the smoky air of the ruined hut.
I knew all about you, Django. I knew she was secretly sneaking out to see you, Kylo whispered weakly, a single tragic tear rolling down his rugged, dying cheek. But I allowed it to happen, desperately hoping she would eventually find true happiness with you if she truly despised me so much. I loved this woman deeply enough to willingly become the evil villain in her twisted story. I knew exactly what was in the cup today. I drank the poisoned wine willingly because my soul was finally tired of constantly fighting the consuming darkness that lives inside her heart. Kylo's breathing slowed. His selfless sacrifice finally revealed to the shocked, naive hunter who had come to kill him. Django stumbled backward, dropping his hands, a wave of cold horror washing over his entire body. He looked desperately at Nia, fully expecting her to scream, to deny the wild accusations, to call the dying Kayelo a pathetic liar. Instead, Nia was smiling. The delicate, innocent, weeping wife had vanished entirely, like smoke in the wind. Her posture straightened tall and proud, and her beautiful face slowly twisted into an expression of deeply malicious, undeniable arrogance. Django felt a freezing sweat run rapidly down his spine, his mind racing to comprehend the nightmare. Nia, by the ancestors, is this true? Did you expertly manipulate and use both of us from the very beginning? He stammered in shock. Of course, it is all true, my incredibly sweet, wonderfully foolish Django, Nia purred, her voice dripping with sinister confidence as she walked gracefully around the dimly lit room. Kalo has immense wealth, but his heart is pathetically weak. He loved me far too much to ever stop my ambitions, but he would never officially give me full control of his vast lands and gold. I absolutely needed him dead to claim what is mine. However, I could not risk the elders' suspicion again. I needed a strong, brave, and wonderfully gullible fool like you to eagerly do all the dirty work and take the blame if things went wrong. She laughed, the sound cold and devoid of any mercy. Blinding anger replaced Django's shock. He fiercely gripped his spear, raising it high and aiming the lethal tip directly at Nia's heart. You wicked demon! You completely used me! I truly loved you with all my soul, and you coldly turned me into a cowardly murderer, he screamed. But before Django could take a single step to strike her down, a sudden blinding pain exploded in his gut. He abruptly dropped his weapon, his knees violently buckling beneath him. He began to gasp desperately for air, clutching his burning stomach as he fell to the dirt, vomiting thick, black bile. Nia stood calmly above him, watching his agony and letting out a soft, delighted giggle that chilled the room.
Did you honestly believe, even for a second, that I would actually share Kalo's massive fortune with a lowly, dirt-poor forest hunter like you? Nia mocked brutally, looking down at Django's writhing form with absolute disgust. Do you remember that deliciously sweet water I so lovingly gave you to drink by the river this afternoon? I carefully laced it with the deadly, concentrated venom of the puff adder snake. It takes time to work, but it never fails. I am taking every single ounce of Kalo's wealth for myself, And I made sure that neither of my devoted husbands will be left alive to stop me or tell the elders the truth. Her eyes gleamed with pure, unfiltered greed. Racked with unimaginable pain, Django reached out a weak, trembling hand toward Nia, his eyes brimming with profound, crushing regret and the agonizing sting of absolute betrayal. He slowly turned his head to look over at the paralyzed Kalo, finally realizing in his last moments that they were both just tragic victims of the exact same beautiful, heartless monster. With one final violent shudder that shook his entire body, Django collapsed face first onto the cold dirt floor, entirely lifeless. The brave man who foolishly thought he was playing the heroic savior had ultimately died as nothing more than a disposable, pathetic pawn in her brilliantly wicked and deadly game of greed.
Kalo, still entirely paralyzed and unable to speak, wept silently in the dirt. He did not cry in fear for his own fading life, but rather for the devastating realization that the woman he had sacrificed his honor, reputation, and life to protect was actually a creature of pure, irredeemable evil. Ignoring his silent tears, Nia casually stepped right over Django's dead body. She aggressively opened Kalo's heavy, hidden wooden chest, revealing a mountain of shining cowrie shells and pure gold dust. She greedily adorned her neck and wrists in heavy jewels, entirely unmoved by the gruesome sight of the two men dying painfully at her feet. She was finally the sole master of her dark destiny. Adorned in stolen gold, Nia walked gracefully out of the dark hut and stepped into the cool, silver moonlight. She took a deep breath, perfectly ready to tell the waking village a dramatic, tragic tale of how her violently cruel husband and a crazed thief had tragically killed each other in the night. Inside the shadowy hut, Kaelo finally closed his sorrowful eyes, his noble heart completely broken. The genuinely good man perished alone in silence, while the wickedly brilliant wife confidently walked away with absolute power and wealth. It is a terrifying truth of the world. Sometimes the most horrific, cold-blooded monsters are the ones hiding perfectly behind the most beautiful and deeply innocent faces. Moral of the story: never judge a person purely by their appearance, their tears, or the stories they tell. Sometimes the ones who appear the most innocent and vulnerable are the most dangerous and manipulative, and those who seem cruel may be secretly carrying the burden of sacrificing everything for your sake. True intentions are always hidden deep beneath the surface, far away from plain sight.
Did this dark and unexpected plot twist catch you completely off guard? If you loved this intense African folktale of forbidden love, brutal betrayal, and deadly hidden secrets, hit the like button, share this thrilling video with your friends, and subscribe for more epic stories every single week. Let us know in the comments below, at what exact moment did you realize Nia was the true villain?